Hey guys, Strictly Ball Business here with Alec and Dalton, and we're ready to talk about fucking basketball, man. We had some crazy stuff go on, including Lauri Markkanen finally getting traded after rumors that we wanted to talk about for weeks, and we wanted to keep talking about it. You know, they went ahead and got it over with and climaxed. So he's going to the Cleveland Cavaliers. We're going to break that down, that trade, all in all, how that looks. We're also going to talk about the report today that Ben Simmons is not going to report to 76ers training camp, and that it's not about the money. It's about pride. It's about respect. It's about being a damn young socialite wanting to be in California. God damn it. It's Ben Simmons, baby. And we're also going to talk about the old man retirement home we have going on in LA, as Rajon Rondo and Deandre Jordan apparently are joining that. So right now, let's start back at that Cleveland, Portland, Chicago three-way deal. What are your first reaction and thoughts to that, Dalton?
I thought it was actually a pretty good trade all the way around. I think all parties got what they wanted out of it. Specifically, I think Cavs by far won this trade. They've needed offense so long, especially with their two centers, with one of them not a shooter at all, and the other one a questionable, needs growth, kind of a project shooter. I think he brings in a lot of offense they need, and hopefully Evan Mobley can change the defense, and that's what they struggle. I mean, they were halfway in between offense for their regular season. So, I mean, they could obviously get better there, but their defense was awful. He doesn't help on that end, but I do think he's a solid piece. It's good. Really interested what lineups they're going to roll out, though. That's what intrigues me the most.
Yeah, very interesting to see, especially if Kevin Love plays it all for them next season.
I don't think he is. I think I mean I've already seen things about them working out a buyout, but this guy's making like 60-70 million over the next 2 years.
Yeah, he said he's not willing to cut it down either. So I don't think that buyout's coming anytime soon.
Like, that guy's got to figure it out. Like, pick one. Like, you're not gonna if they're gonna make you. They're gonna make you play if you're not gonna take a cut. Like why would you? If the Cavaliers, why would you be like, yeah, we'll give you your full salary just so you can walk away? You know.
Then he just shows up out of shape, and then he rehabs, and he just never actually plays. That's what Kevin Love wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, and he's not even a good veteran. He's not even helping out this young core. Like, we saw the frustration and the toxic environment he was pushing on all the young Cavs, and the way he was playing, tossing, chucking balls at players, screaming at people. Like, man,
Kevin Love is the Joe Flacco of the NBA. For anyone that knows the NFL, he's Joe Flacco is a guy who was really good, flash in the pan, got them to a championship, and they won. Not necessarily because of him, but he did have a great postseason, similar to a Kevin Love who had some great years early on, and then he fell off a cliff after getting paid. And even in his later years has been a terrible chemistry. And you would think just because he's a great player who became an older vet that he'd be a good guy to lean on, Kevin Love and Joe Flacco. But neither of them have any interest in mentoring their young guys. Kevin Love is a joke, but they do have some really exciting young players on this squad now, especially in the big men. And I agree that Cleveland probably won this trade. They kind of gave Lauri a lot of money, but we'll get to that in a sec. But in terms of just the player they're adding, a lot of shooting, which they need. And defensively, he's going to be worse than Larry Nance. And they're losing a hometown guy in Larry. But I think that these guys in Cleveland, they're going to grow to enjoy someone who can space the floor and get a pass out to a guy cutting down, hopefully. I'm hoping that a new situation for Lauri is going to cause him to maybe be more cooperative and a better teammate. I don't know. Wishful thinking on my end, I suppose.
Well, I think he's excited to be on a new team with the Cavs. In reference to his contract, I think it's a stretch, but I think it's certainly a tradable contract. I think the average around the years, it's ascending in 17, 18, 19 million, I think, in 3 years plus a 3 year. I don't have the contract up in front of me, but it's
4 years, 67 mil.
67. Yeah. So it's about that.
Yeah. And the last year, I think, is guaranteed like about 75% of it.
Okay. So I think it's definitely a tradable contract. I think he's shown, I don't think he's going to Timothy Mozgov this contract. I don't think he's going to fall off and become a non-factor just like that. This guy came out, showed even on his worst year, he's scoring 14 points a game and shooting 40% from three. So I think that there's always a place somewhere in the league for that. I think he's a good fit. I think this means one of the centers is getting kicked out, and I think that's Jared Allen. I love that guy, but him or Mobley, and Lauri's not fast enough nor versatile enough to play the three. If they found a way to make it work, I don't think it's with the current coach they have. I don't think it's just, especially in today, I don't think it's going to work out that way. If he works out as a sixth man, I could be wrong, and that could work out perfectly, but that's best case scenario.
I see the vision. I think their plan is Evan Mobley gets to come off the bench for the first year, or at bare minimum the first half of the season, and then they trade Jared Allen a year from now to somebody. But for that time being, you still got a solid guy who can start. You got somebody who can teach the ropes a little bit to Evan Mobley, which I think has its own value rather than just throwing him out there as well. And Lauri Markkanen, I think, is going to fit well next to both Allen and then Mobley. And so they just want to have a solid player next to them in either circumstance.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Lauri, either center, either one they choose to go with, I think he's a great fit next to them. Either way, they're both defensive-minded fives. Both struggle with shooting, and he can help out on that end. And he's the power forwards. Easier to hide on defense as they don't have to protect the middle. They're still a wing defender, and his perimeter defense is not good. I mean, his highlight defensive moment was throwing a basketball at Steph Curry's face. And even then, it was a pretty good play, actually. But he's just not that defender. And I think there's a possibility out there where they can run him at the three and a Coro off the bench, and with Mobley at 4, assuming Mobley comes out and versatile. I'm not a fan of it either, but I think there's a world where that works. But that requires Mobley to get up and down and shows that he can defend the perimeter as well as he did in college. And one thing for rookies is perimeter inside defense can come, not as smart as we've seen with struggles with Mo Bamba right now and a bunch of younger players like James Wiseman. They can defend. I mean, they can hold down the middle. They can block. It's just they'll over foul. It's just a little messy defense, but the defense is there. That'll come. I think it's the perimeter defense of Evan Mobley that they got to be concerned with, especially the rookie year. I'm not saying he can't turn into that, but it's a harder thing to master than inside defense for the bigs.
Yeah. Now, defense is going to take some time for Evan, but his offensive potential is right up there with Cat when he came into the league. And I think his potential to get creative in a fast break as a big man, just having the dribble package that he has is going to give him so much more avenues to success than other big men that you had named off, just because he's already coming into the league more versatile. So I'm a big Evan Mobley believer. I think defense is all about discipline. He can get to be as good as a guy like Bam Adebayo. He's got the same body build. He's got the same type of versatility and speed. And I think that's the trajectory you're looking for.
Yeah. Great fit for Lauri. I think I'm really interested to see how they do with it. I envision a 6-man role, but we'll see how actually he thought 100% he was going to the Spurs. I saw a report.
Yeah.
He's like, I thought I'm going. I thought that would have been a fine pick. I mean, I think they're stacked with forwards and shooting guards as is. I think he probably would have been the better of them. I mean, Keldon Johnson has shown took a real bounce last year. Plus they still have not Neesmith. Devin Vassell, he was their draft pick last year. He has a lot of upside. Plus Lonnie Walker and the slew of them, McDermott. I
Yeah.
think it's probably smarter for them not to sign him so they can develop these guys, especially now that Spurs have entered rebuilding. But I thought he would have done well on the Spurs. I think
Yeah. I
would
think it
have
would
fit
have been
fine.
an interesting fit. I think maybe they just balked at the price and the contract that he ended up getting. I think if you ask yourself, well, would you rather have Lauri at 4 years, 67 million, or Thad Young for 1 year, 14 million, plus Doug McDermott for 3 years, 39 million, plus they signed someone else too. I can't remember. They signed someone else kind of weird, but I think it was another 2 year deal. So it's kind of, would you rather give the longer money to a riskier guy at a younger age, or would you rather give it to these, veterans who don't have necessarily a higher ceiling, but maybe the Spurs don't view Lauri as having that high of a ceiling either.
For sure. But solid on Cavs end. They did well. And what was it their first they gave up, or I guess we can transition into the other
So,
teams too.
so Portland ends up giving up Derrick Jones Jr. They give up their own 2022 lottery protected first, and they give up Denver's second round 2023 pick that they had the rights to.
Mhm.
And so that all goes back to the Bulls. And then Portland gets Larry Nance in return from the Cavs. So, it's a pretty interesting trade for Portland. I understand they don't have a ton of assets to trade around, as they seem to be trading picks every year to just kind of make marginal moves to try and get over a little hump in the playoffs for Dame, but it never really results in much. I'm looking at 2 first-round picks they traded for Robert Covington. They had made, obviously done the Norman Powell trade recently over Gary Trent, just marginal moves. And now they do this to bring in Larry Nance, who's actually a very solid player for them, obviously better than Derrick Jones, but he's not the best player in this trade either. So,
Right. I think the Trailblazers definitely lost. I think they gave up a little too much for he could be their answer at power forward, assuming they put Norman Powell off the bench and it's like Dame, CJ McCollum, or Norman Powell. Not CJ and Covington. I guess they're gonna have to pick whether Powell comes off the bench or Covington's the 3. I assume he's their starting power forward now. You could put him off the bench and Covington at 4. I personally like Covington at the 3, but I think he's a really nice perimeter defender. One of the best at grabbing steals. He's averaged close to 2 the last 3 years. He's been solid on that end. Never developed as a shooter. Always been athletic. He's shown last year and the year before he's starting to peeking into more playmaking. He's starting to get into that role. More like his former teammate, Julius Randle. Reminiscent of that, not nearly as good passing nor overall skill wise, but I think he's a solid piece. I think they gave up a first and Derrick Jones Jr. is a little much. Not that Derrick Jones Jr. is a massive asset, but airplane mode is certainly a decent asset for a team to have.
yeah, I think you're just looking at getting an upgrade at that power forward position, because they obviously play the same position. But what does Derrick Jones give you on defense that Larry Nance doesn't? Jones can hold his own a little bit there, but Nance in the end actually gets steals. He's active. He's quicker in transition, and he's a good teammate as well.
Smarter
So
player
that's
too.
he's a smarter player. So high IQ, and he worked hard over in Cleveland. He didn't really care about being the most popular player out there, but he was still a fan favorite.
Yeah, he's definitely better overall player than Derrick Jones Jr. I think athleticism is maybe the only thing Derrick Jones has on him. I don't know their shooting splits right off the top of my head, but I imagine they're similar. I don't
Yeah.
remember Derrick Jones Jr. being that great of a shooter. I do think
No, I think
he probably
Nance
has more volume.
actually, yeah, I think Nance actually shot it and 36% from three. So he actually put a couple attempts up, whereas Jones won't try it. It's less than 1 in 10 per game.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense, but still, it's obviously a desperate move for Portland. They're like, hey, we got to get any sort of talent. I mean, if when you look at it the way as just like, oh, they got a decent piece, but if you implicate the situation they're in with possibly losing Dame, if Larry Nance Jr. is your free agent for the offseason, not free agent, but big new asset, I don't know if that cuts it. I don't know how much better they'll be than last year, assuming, injuries might play a huge factor. If they're all healthy, they could make the conference finals again. That's the thing with the Portland Trailblazers. They have such a high ceiling and like a decent floor. Like it's so crazy to see where they're going to end up every year. Like
Yeah.
2 years ago, conference finals. This year, bounced in the first round.
I think they're hoping that Norman Powell takes a step up and has better chemistry now playing a full season this year with this team. And that maybe that's kind of their X factor, getting them further through the playoffs. And then adding Larry Nance as a guy who just helps solidify their lineup. Their top five is pretty good now with Dame, CJ, Norman, Covington, Nance, actually six, and then Nurkic as six. Obviously Nurkic wouldn't come off the bench, but as their six best players, I think that's not bad. They could use some more shooting, obviously. I think giving up Gary Trent sucked to be able to do that, but obviously Norman Powell's really good too. It just kind of depends what you value more and who you think is going to break out more. I think Powell's a little more consistent right now, but Gary Trent might easily become the better player.
Yeah, he has a higher ceiling, definitely. But yeah, I think it was an all right move. If I had to give them a grade, I'll give them a B minus. If
Yeah.
I had to give them a grade.
B minus. Thanks for trying, and hopefully this gets you, an A on the final here.
Yeah,
That's what
hopefully.
the teacher had told. But yeah, if we're going and giving out grades for all three teams here, I give Cleveland a B plus because good job on them getting a solid fit with Lauri Markkanen, but also they took a big risk in giving in that contract. So I'm not going to give them an A quite yet. So we'll see how that one goes. In terms of the Blazers, I give them probably a B or a B minus. Solid player. Hopefully that works out for them, but it doesn't move the needle that far in reality. And then for the Bulls, I'm gonna give them an A, maybe an A plus with a
Wow.
spank on their ass because they didn't even want Lauri Markkanen on their roster realistically, and they get Derrick Jones to add to an exciting team. They've already got Zach LaVine dunking over there. They got Lonzo throwing up lobs, and now they've got Derrick Jones going up in the air too. And
Right.
DeMar DeRozan, baby. Oh man, that's gonna be fun. And they get a first rounder and a second rounder out of it. You can't really ask for much more than that from them.
Yeah, I think on paper, you look at this trade straight up and you're like, oh yeah, good. The Bulls did fine. They got first round, second round, and a decent rotational player. I think that's fine. If you implement it and what they're trying to do, does Derrick Jones Jr. fix what they need? I think ideally they wanted um Nance, they wanted that perimeter defense. I think he would have fit their role as power forward perfectly. He's not by far a shot blocker, but he's still a decent defender that would have fit around them. But Derrick Jones Jr. isn't a bad defender in his own right. He's still decent, as we were just talking about. But I think they got a few more picks back from all these moves they did. They got some more leverage. They can go out and get a decent player. I don't know who,
Well, they
but
needed the first round pick because they've traded a couple of first rounders to get the other guys like Vucevic and Lonzo Ball. So it makes sense why they want to get a little bit of draft capital back, seeing what they've shelled out recently.
yeah. Well, who's the Bulls starting forward now? Is it DeMar or Derrick Jones Jr. is not the starter, right?
For
You know,
power forward,
yeah. Who do you think is going to start?
probably Patrick Williams.
Oh yeah. So I forgot all about Pat Will. So yeah, Patrick Williams hopefully will develop into that defender they need, but it's kind of a lot to ask a second year player, to be the second best defensive player in the starting lineup, unless they can
Yeah,
get Levine to buy in. I mean, he's a good on ball defender as is. It's just in the right system. So I mean,
yeah. Defensively, they probably won't be that good this year. But I think Patrick Williams has a ton of potential as a defender. He's very quick, very versatile, and he's got the size. So I don't think that's necessarily going to be a bad fit there. It might look a little ugly to start out.
yeah, he's got a very Iguodala skill set, not build. So it's a little strange to see it that when you watch him play, like it doesn't remind you of Iguodala as much, but it's his skill set. He can shoot, struggles from shooting, just like Iguodala has always struggled from shooting. Not clutch shooting. He can hit those. Max Kellerman picks him over Steph Curry. But
Give me Iguodala.
so some madness there. But he can hit him from outside. Like he's not unguardable. I mean, he's not completely ignorable from the three, and he gives you solid defense. He's not as good as a defender as Iguodala. Yeah, I think he could be a better defender than Iguodala potentially.
Yeah, P. Will is their X factor this year. I think he's going to have a fantastic season, stepping up. So I'm expecting big things out of him. Maybe 16, 17 points a game with 6 rebounds. And I'm looking for efficiency. I'm hoping he shoots around like 46%. So we'll see if you can do it, P. Will. You are my guy.
I think he'll score 12. That's not even that's nothing against him. I'm saying he's the 5th option in that starting lineup. I think 12 is like assuming he hits them all efficiently. Like I think their second option should be Vucevic, third should be DeMar, assuming he's the second playmaking role. Fourth is Lonzo, and first is Zach LaVine for the roster they have.
I don't think that means that he can't average 17. I think he could still play some minutes with the bench and kind of do a hybrid role. So maybe dominate on some younger guys still.
Right. I mean, there's always that. We'll see who leads the bench unit when the rosters come out.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we've digested this trade a decent bit. It's nice to see something going on around these dark days of the NBA summer, but fall is around the corner and jerseys are getting swapped.
50 days.
50 days, man. Less than 2 months. So another person who's considering swapping jerseys is someone that gets talked about a lot in the NBA world, Mr. Ben Simmons himself. Today, he apparently told 76ers top brass that he's not interested in coming back to the team. He will not report to training camp. Money's not a factor, and it's about being a young socialite living his dreams in California. Now, the question is if the Sixers are going to help let him live that dream. Do you think he's going to get traded to one of those Californian teams, or is he going to get shipped off to Minnesota?
I don't think he'll go to an LA team. I don't think the Clippers can put together enough Paul George maybe moves that needle. Is that something the Clippers want to do? I mean, who would you rather have in the long run? I mean, you have Kawhi. Kawhi probably he's out this whole year. He signed that contract extension.
Paul George for Simmons would be asinine.
It would be asinine, but that's that. Like now that with him coming out, Ben Simmons coming out and telling everyone like, I'm not going to camp, lowers his value. The 76ers are going to get less for him because now teams are like, oh no, he's not going to play. Like you have less leverage now. Timberwolves are looking at it and be like, you want a D'Lo before? It's now Malik Beasley. That's the best asset you get from us. Pacers are like, we wanted to give you Malcolm Brogdon in a first, and they probably offered more after they declined. And now they're like, oh no, Malcolm Brogdon's looking like a pretty good asset now, huh?
Yeah, I mean, this is like one of those times where everyone kept saying that Daryl Morey is the genius. He's just reeling him in. He's just gonna get the package he wants. He's waiting for that bite. It's like, yeah, I think he maybe overstepped and waited a bit too long here. If there was an opportunity to get James Harden last year, that should have been the trigger they should have pulled. because this year they've just been banking on Damian Lillard and Bradley Beal, and those guys are not requesting out. And now Simmons is like, sorry, my coach Doc Rivers didn't have my back after I let the team down. Joel Embiid's talked shit about me. He clearly does not want to go back. And can you blame the guy? Like, obviously, I get it. Everyone wants to shit on him for the way he played in the playoffs. But in reality, he's still one of the top 30 players in the NBA. And any team would be lucky to have a player of his talent on their team. It's just a matter of the contract that's the issue, and a matter of where he wants to go. But the 76ers don't have to trade him to somewhere in California. The Clippers, they don't have a package to put together for him. The Warriors do. The Lakers don't, but the Kings do. And I think the Kings are actually the most intriguing team out there that could get him, because I think they have quite a few assets to offer up. As you know, we had gone into depth on them having the best young core in the NBA.
Yeah, I think the Kings definitely are up there. Personally, I think my favorite two, not my favorite two for him to go to. I think the ones I think lead this charge are the Pacers and the Timberwolves. I think the Wolves could definitely put together. I'm not the Wolves. The Warriors definitely, in my eyes, have the best package for trading a player. That package doesn't line up with the timeline that the Sixers want to reach. However, that's why I thought it would be really nice for the Wizards if they want to commit to a rebuild. But they have a rebuilding package. You know, that's what you. That's what they don't want. But I think when you look at it, I think the Pacers, maybe not Brogdon, if they threw in, be like, listen, I know we got Karras. He's all healthy now. Throw in Karras and someone else. I think that's enticing for the 76ers. The Pacers is actually my front runner, who I think is where the Simmons will end up. I don't think Indiana's going to feed his socialite ego, but I think they can get enough assets from the Pacers. The Timberwolves are interesting, though. If I were Ben Simmons and I had to choose a team out there, I just solely on basketball, not location, not front office or any of that, I'd be like, to complement his game, I'd like send you the Timberwolves. You got Malik Beasley, Anthony Edwards, and Karl Anthony Towns, assuming D'Lo's in the main piece of this trade, even if it's just a swap, which might be pretty decent, but I think the Timberwolves will end up adding maybe like a Noel in there just to sweeten the deal, or maybe a little extra. Maybe they'll take Taurean Prince. Doubt that. I don't think they have that cap, but I think he has all those three of those guys I mentioned, Edwards, Beasley, and Cat. Think about those guys are very low usage off ball guys. So Simmons has all three of them can shoot, and he can hold the ball as much as he wants. He can still play point guard or point forward, whatever they need him. And he can hold the line. He's going to be the defensive leader and even show off more on what he loves defense. He loves playing it. He gets to get put on a bigger stage, have that role where he's leading the defense. Yeah, I don't think their defense will be as good as the 76ers, because Joel's solid defender and Matisse Thybulle's obviously up there. But certainly, I mean, it'll be a serviceable defense they can build around him. Plus, not to mention the crazy offense the Timberwolves would have, but it's a better fit than with Brogdon, Sabonis, Turner, he has a 3-point shot. He can hit it 34%. Sabonis, not really. But I mean, he's a mid-range shooter. It's not completely dead in the water, spacing wise, but I think that would be if he went to the Pacers, depending upon the package, if it was Karis LeVert and I don't know, Justin Holiday.
Probably Karis LeVert and TJ Warren minimum, or Karis LeVert and Malcolm Brogdon with the pick. I think they would have to be that.
I think they'd have to throw in Seth Curry's contract if they wanted to get TJ Warren, because I think that brings it up to like 40-45 million in cap with Karis and them together. So they need to add one small, they have Danny Green's contract. They could toss that in there, and I think that would equal out. That would be great for the 76ers. I don't think the Pacers would be like, hey, here's
I
are
think they
two
would.
out of our three major scorers on this team. I don't think they would
TJ
give it up.
Warren has been in trade rumors this offseason already, and Karis LeVert, I think, is a tough piece to give up, but I think realistically, you got to give up either him or Malcolm Brogdon to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think they value Karras because he was such a steal because Oladipo just flat out sucked last year, and they got Karras for Oladipo. Plus, I think it was a pick.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah, they
I'd
made
take
out
that.
like bandits on that.
Yeah, and TJ Warren, oh, they got him for Bogdanovich, which TJ Warren played like crazy in the bubble. Like that was insane, and he was injured a lot of last year. But I think those assets could equal out. I think maybe the Sixers would have to throw in Maxey, Danny Green, and Simmons for. I think that would get closer to Warren and LeVert. I don't think
Yeah,
that
why
would
would they
do
give
it
up?
though.
I don't know why they need to give up Maxi. I know I've seen in rumors today that Rich Paul wants to get Maxi out of there too. I don't really get that. I mean, why Maxi would want to leave anyways, because if Simmons is gone, Maxi's their starting point guard, depending on who they get back in a trade. If they do get a point guard back, I mean, Maxi's probably still going to play a decent bit, maybe more than he did before. Who knows? But
Seth can play the 1-2.
I don't see why the Sixers would trade him.
I think it's more Maxi is the only, aside from Thibault, who could easily be thrown in. Maxi or Thibault. One's just as good as the other offensively. Maxi's as good offensively as Matisse is defensively, I think. I think they're just that value per salary that would fit in a lot of trades. They have a very easy to throw in there without having to put in a major contact. Because whoever gets Danny Green, that's more or less an expire. He's a decent piece, but you're taking on more of the salary, less than the player. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think realistically that's more likely to happen than them just throwing in Maxi or Thibault into a deal like they're just throwaway players.
Not
I
that they're
think
throwaway players; it's to move the needle of the value. I mean, I think
yeah, they don't
Warren
need to
and
include
LeVert.
those. They don't need to include those guys for Warren and Karis LeVert.
I I think you're valuing. I mean, Simmons is better than both of them. He's proven to be better than Karis LeVert. I think there's a way that LeVert can come out and be more valuable as a player than Simmons. I mean, Simmons' huge thing is that he's only 24. He's a huge young player. He's all this potential. But if you take him at face value, LeVert can come out. I mean, LeVert also struggles with shooting, but he can shoot. At least he can hit him, not as efficiently as you would like. And he has serviceable defense, but he's a decent piece. He'll come out and give you 20 and 5.
Yeah, I agree. But then you don't need to add on Maxi, who's a solid up and coming point guard. They spent a first round pick on from Kentucky, or Matisse Thybulle, who made second team All NBA in his second season.
Defense.
Just
all
so
NBA
that,
defense.
yeah, all defense, just so that they can get TJ Warren or Karis LeVert add to it. Like Ben Simmons is worth Warren and LeVert alone plus another pick easily, is what I'm saying.
I don't think that lines up. I mean, they're both of them are Warren and LeVert are 20 point per game scorers. I mean, they don't add as much on defense as you'd like, but I think I mean, if you play LeVert at the 1 or 2 with Seth, I think that adds to their offense way more than it could that they could imagine with Simmons. I think that's a huge piece. And if I'm the 76ers and it's getting those two, and even if I'm like, I'll give you Maxi, give me like a second back. So those two players plus a second, and I'll give you an expiring contract because they're all Danny Green's not value added. It's just matching up salary. So I mean, he does add to the team. Don't get me wrong, but at this point in the trade, they're not trading for Danny Green. They're like, hey, we'll take that contract to make it work. But then he's not adding the value we want. So we need another player. And Korkmaz wouldn't do that. Korkmaz is the only other one that's making similar cap than these guys. And I don't think he'll move that needle. I do think that's more value than they want to give up. I think that is the better trade if Maxey or Thibault's in there, that's obviously more, but they don't have enough to hit that middle. You know what I mean? They don't have a player that's like, oh yeah, he's the middleman. He's gonna fill that hole in this trade that we need. They're obviously a little more high qualified for this trade. They're gonna push the 76ers are giving up too much value, but at this point, the situation that Ben Simmons has put them in, I mean, you got to get value from it. It's either that or settle for
Yeah.
D'Lo plus a piece.
So you think D'Lo is less valuable than Karis LeVert and TJ Warren? Like D'Lo and I don't know, some other player on the Wolves you can name, I guess.
No, I think that's the best package the Timberwolves would put up. I don't think they're gonna take Beasley and D'Lo for like Seth Curry.
You wouldn't do both. There's no way it would be Beasley and D'Lo. It might be D'Lo and
Well, no,
McDaniels.
that's my point. So like those two.
I'm asking you who's like what you're comparing D'Lo versus what the Pacers can put together.
I'm just saying that's what the Timberwolves are most likely going to give. That's their package is D'Lo plus.
We haven't seen any indication they're willing to do that either. You're just making shit up on that one.
Well, yeah, obviously it's speculation. I'm saying
you got to speculate realistically.
I think realistically, the way we like D'Lo, you and I we're Timberwolves fans. I think we value him more than every other team values him because he's such a non-factor on defense. But we see what he can do offensively. Made an all-star game, had a 50-point game with Golden State. He's certainly that player. I just think the 76ers, if the Timberwolves want to get Ben Simmons, I don't think it's going to work with Malik Beasley and stuff. I think they have to put their best foot forward. And I've come to cope that D'Lo for Ben Simmons would be a decent trade. And I've gotten through it, but I think the Pacers can put together a better package.
I still think realistically a 3-team deal is possible.
Right. But I mean, it's hard to predict a three-team deal, but maybe with Pacers and Timberwolves, and maybe have the Kings replace one of those teams. They could possibly pull out a TJ Warren and Buddy Hield to 76ers. That would help out a lot.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, who knows? It sounds like a Ben Simmons trade is probably going to happen within the next month or so, though. I kind of doubt that with Philadelphia, with the market they have, having the second most stressed fans, according to a study recently in the league. I kind of doubt that they're going to have Ben Simmons start the season because that would just be a mess from a PR standpoint. And it just becomes a big distraction. I mean, you see with Harden this last year, you see it with Anthony Davis the year before. Butler. I think Ben Simmons would be really bad. Yeah, Jimmy Butler with the Timberwolves. Like, I think the situation with Ben Simmons would be really bad to hang on to him for much
especially
longer.
How he's already acting. Yeah, he's already acting just as bad as Jimmy at the very end. You know, he's laughing, cheering for the other team. I mean, like, I wouldn't ask him to come to games if I was the 76ers. I think it'll fall into the season. I think we're hard pressed to see a trade happen. I mean, it's 50 days. It could certainly happen. But my gut feeling tells me it's going to be a few games into the season before he gets moved.
It's just so risky to do that because if he potentially gets hurt and then you've got no reason or no one's got any reason to trade with you now. He tears his ACL. Yeah, guess what? You really messed up on this one, Sixers.
No, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're not going to try. I think they're trying right now to flip this guy, but I think it's going to take that long for Daryl Morey to finally be like, all right, just like you and I, we're not even working for the 76ers and we couldn't even agree on value. So and from what it sounds like, Daryl Morey's way off on what he thinks the value for Ben Simmons is compared to what other teams are valuing Ben Simmons at. So I think it's going to take that long.
Yeah, we'll see. I think it'll hopefully get resolved soon. That's my hope. But we could always talk about Ben Simmons any day and every day of the week. But let's move on to the most popular team in the NBA, the LA Lakers, as they are signing Rajon Rondo for a veteran minimum 1 year, $2.6 million deal. And they are likely going to get DeAndre Jordan after he's bought out with an agreement from the Nets, which my first opinion on the Jordan deal I don't know. I don't know why anybody would expect much out of that, because if the Nets don't want him when they need big man help, he really ain't that good then, buddy. Going to the Lakers, he's probably just gonna end up getting cut later on there, them himself.
Yeah, I mean, DeAndre Ayton, I don't love the guy. Super. That's a nice veteran to
DeAndre
have, you know.
Jordan.
Oh, yes. DeAndre Jordan. He's a nice veteran to have. Great locker room guy. I think he's probably going to end the season with some young team like the Kings. I can see him on the Pistons. I can see him ending with the Magic on a buyout. Uh, I don't think it's where they already have him. I mean, they already have the better version of him, which is Dwight Howard right now. They already have their old man that's just going to catch boards and hit and maybe catch a block or two. You know,
Yeah.
I don't see his role being needed. I mean, they also have Marc Gasol. Like, how many 2014 All Stars does this team need? Like,
It's possible that Marcus Gasol's gonna get cut.
yeah, I don't think he ends the season with the Lakers. I like his veteran presence. I don't think that's what they need on this team. Not a good fit. It's just they're just like, hey, remember that All-Star game we played 20 years ago? How about we all do the same thing at the same time?
Yeah, everyone brings veteran presence on this Lakers team.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's my point. Like, it's just at this point, it's like whatever. Another veteran. And
Yeah.
as for Rondo, I think last year, I mean, I was super excited when I saw he was going to the Clippers in the trade deadline. I'm like, oh yeah, that's exactly what they need. I don't think he's going to help out this team as much as he did 2 years ago. I think they already have a ton of veterans. Not saying he's not, but what his biggest impact was, he was the point guard for that championship team. You know, he playoff playoff Rondo came out and he showed them that he can still play. But last year, I mean, you could say chemistry was an issue with the Clippers. He had some struggles with Paul George and Kawhi, but I think he's also shown his age last year. And I think it's time that he regular season playoff Rondo died with the Mavs, and I think playoff Rondo died with the Clippers.
Yeah, his career is dwindling away. It seemed like it was going to be disintegrated sooner than by now, but he's had a nice couple past seasons bouncing around, and it seems like every time I blink, he's got a new jersey on. But back with the LA Lakers, where he won the championship a couple years ago, maybe he can repeat what he did there in some way. I don't know.
Whose roster spot does he steal? I mean, is he the backup point guard? Oh yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm assuming
Kendrick
Nunn's going to be
Nunn.
the started. Is he stealing Nunn's spot? I wouldn't. I would say Nunn's the starting point guard and Rondo's the backup.
So Russell Westbrook is coming off the bench then.
Oh fuck, that's what. So in that case, my bad. Totally forgot about Russ. But I don't think he steals Nunn's spot. I think he's
No.
the 10th, 11th guy on this roster. Rondo
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, he might not play at all in the regular season.
I'm sure he'll play. I'm sure they'll blow a few teams out because they'll
Yeah.
play such physical offense that they'll break everyone's bones.
Yeah. Guys will
Especially if they
rotate.
face the Magic.
Guys will rotate. Guys will get hurt on this team. I think a lot of them will get playing time, but he's just another body. I mean, when they need him, he's a guy who knows what he's doing. He's won the championships before, and he's got a lot of familiarity with players on this team. So
Yeah, one of the smartest players I've ever seen in the NBA. And I mean, he's just at this point, he's just an assistant coach with a jersey on, right? Like
yeah,
that's what they signed him for.
yeah, he's great. I mean, great facilitator, obviously one of the best of all time in that category, and he can help command a fast break and a half court offense. So he's a guy who's worth having on your team. Obviously, a lot slower, and Father Time's catching up with him, maybe caught up with him, but I don't know, whatever. It's Rajon Rondo.
I mean, I approve of the trade. I approve of the signing. If that's
Yeah.
what we're come down to, I think it'll help.
Yeah, it's fine. It's not surprising. Like the Lakers, we knew they were going to get whatever veteran like this that they wanted. So
For sure.
these are the type of guys that they have to get. So Rajon Rondo and DeAndre Jordan to the Lakers. Obviously, Rondo is the better move out of the two. We'll see if they're both or if either one is on the roster by the end of the season. Regardless, should be a fun season with the Lakers. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is probably the last best chance they got at a championship for the next couple of seasons.
Right. I mean, it should be said that there's even a possibility DeAndre Ayton doesn't go to the Lakers. They're the front runners to signing him after his Jordan. After his buyout, they're the front runners. I mean, he could he could end up on the Clippers.
He could go to the Heat. He could go to the Bucks. He could go anywhere. Who knows? But
I doubt he'll go to the Bucks. They don't get any buyout.
He could go to the Magic. He could go to the Blazers. He could go anywhere, damn it. He could go to Tuscaloosa.
Yeah. He could
but
play in Barcelona next year. We don't know.
But it's been a fun one. I think that's all we got here, talking that big trade we had this week. Ben Simmons talking about wanting to be traded, and a couple of old men going to the retirement home in LA with the Lakers. So that's it, folks. Strictly Ball Business. We'll catch you for next time on episode 12. See ya.